Yeah, we all have expectations, and it starts from early life. We're expecting to feel mom's warm heart, and many times when we don't get what we need or what we expect, we experience disappointment. And this shapes us and all of our relationships, and it has to do with what we later on expect of our family, our spouse. There are people that stop expecting things altogether. They protect themselves that way. I'm not expecting anything, therefore I won't be disappointed. But maybe that's not the right way to go through life. Maybe we should have some expectations. So today we want to find out what is that expectation that we're born with? How should we develop it? Or what's the right kind of expectation? What should we expect of life? Of life. Yeah, that need that we're born with, that we expect. We expect pleasure. That's it. My entire expectation of life is to enjoy each and every moment and see more and more options, possibilities, opportunities to enjoy endlessly. Even a small baby that's born, if that baby will not know that there are pleasures ahead, he won't grow. So it's important to have expectations. It's a must. In the wisdom of Kabbalah, expectation is called Or Mekif, the surrounding light, an illumination which we exist in that shines on us and gives us the sense of future. If that illumination does not give us a sense of a good future, it's dim, depressing, I don't grow. I contract to the point that I can die, even without having something happen to me, just due to lack of expectation. That's something very essential, if so. We have to have the so-called Ol Pnimi, inner light for now, and Ol Makif, surrounding light for the future. Because many times in life it doesn't work. We expect, and we're disappointed. Either we're not realistic, a person gets used to any situation and it's impossible for him to live without an expectation. He can't last, he can't hold, maybe a few days, a month, but it's impossible that he has no expectation. Something that shines from afar pulling me. Yeah. No matter what. No matter. And besides, our ego is so cunning that we can build for ourselves expectations in the most terminal, finite states, which actually explains our ability to get used to things. Yeah, the fact is that humanity invented the next world for itself and different things. Why? For a person to have such an expectation which you can't contradict. That he can live and expect to have something there, or some kind of a reward at least, if not here, then there, and so on. That's the greatest expectation, the most fictitious, unclear, imaginary, entirely. And look how many manners it has in every nation, every religion, and that keeps people alive, of course. Something very powerful then. So, I want to talk about relationships. In relationships, it's very obvious that we expect of someone to do something because we did something for him, and maybe that's the biggest source of disputes, anger, when someone behaves differently than what I expected of him. I'm really angry at that person. It's worthwhile for you to correct your ego, Mrs. Because if you were not egoistic, but you would have loved the other, then you would have only been doing good things to that person and you would have enjoyed it without asking anything in return. So we don't need to expect anything of anyone. No. What do you expect of a baby? For him to feel good, right? And that's enough for you. Yeah. Meaning because you love the baby, you're doing good things for him and you want him to feel good. And that being enough, to the extent to which you love someone, you give, and for you it's not giving. You're filled up by it, right? Yeah. Why don't you behave that way towards everyone, but only towards your baby? I think that adults have a need for mutuality. No, no. It's all in all lack of love. And what about a child that's expecting to feel love from his parents and he doesn't get it, he is disappointed. There are children that their parents leave them. The reason is the same reason, lack of love. Lack of love from the one, from the other, from both of them, and different expectations for love and disappointments in return. The world's full of it. All in all, our ego pushes us to have expectations and to constantly experience disappointments. So there's something that's not working here. That child whose parent left him, later on he develops a defense mechanism that doesn't allow him to expect anything of anyone. He closes himself, shuts himself emotionally. He has no expectations, so maybe it's not that good. Maybe it is good. Protects you. Protects him. He doesn't feel pain. Why have expectations and then be disappointed? But at the beginning of our talk, you said that a person without expectation dwindles and he can really die from it. And this is what we see today, that people live like grass. So what's better, to have or not to have expectations? It's not about good or bad. I'm explaining about what's happening in nature. I'm not giving my outlook on things here, or my attitude towards what's happening, but I'm simply explaining that this is what's happening with humanity and what's the reason. So a person that doesn't expect anything because he learned very early in life that if you expect, you'll be disappointed. So what happens with his development? Because he doesn't open himself up to people, he doesn't expect any attitude from them. Maybe he benefits from not having any disappointments, depending on the society he lives in. What does he do? Maybe it's not a problem for him. And also, this is the kind of person he is by character. He works, he relaxes, he exercises, does different things, maybe even has a family, but he has no expectations because he learned on his own flesh. And also, this is how things happen in life. And he arranged his life in a way where why expect things and be disappointed? I want to ask about this mechanism. You said that the mechanism of expectation is the most natural thing that's rooted in us, that a person has to have something shining from afar, otherwise he can't develop. Why is nature built this way? What's the purpose of this expectation mechanism rooted in us? Because it exists only in people. It doesn't exist in animals. An animal is cleaved on to the very moment it lives in. A person, he has to know what happens tomorrow and the next day, also depending on the kind of person that is. How developed is that person? There are people in the world that live from one day to the next. There are people in the world that don't feel time. They don't. I met different people in life, not in Israel, in different countries where I traveled, that people, you ask them, where are you going? He's telling you where he's going, but you tell him it's 40 kilometers away. He says, fine, no problem. Meaning he doesn't feel that there is such a long way ahead. Or vice versa, that he has to start doing something. You're asking him, what, do that? It can take you 2 years. He says, okay. He doesn't feel time. It's not that he is stubborn and he has a real need for it, but there are people that look at things very simply, meaning they don't have a feeling of time, distance like we have. So the expectation mechanism, why do we have it? You said animals don't have it and people do, and depending on the extent to which that person is developed, why does that mechanism of expectation exist at all? In order to think about life and to ask and answer the question of what is life? What is it for? What is the meaning of life?